We use a lot of waste yarn when using the circular sock machine. This time I started with quite a lot because I was casting on with the netting, which is another video entirely, but it requires that I knit for a good while so as to get the weights hung on the actual knitting rather than the netting before proceeding with the sock. We separate the waste yarn from the main yarn by snipping the waste yarn in 3 or 4 places around the circumference of the sock, and then the strands will pull right out. So of course we have sacrificed the round that we snipped, but the rest is recyclable. The safest way, once it's free from the sock knitting, is to take it over to your ball winder and rewind it. And the reason that I say it's safest is because this gives the ball winder a chance to find any flaws and weak spots that have developed in the yarn, and you won't find them while trying to knit and have all the weights fall off and have to cast on again. However, if you're brave, there is a shortcut where we unwind the former waste yarn into its new position straight from its last use. Having discarded the row that had the snips in it, I'm pulling out enough to make sure that there is no other damage from the snipping and threading it in, putting the weights back on the work, and starting to knit with the waste yarn. And here you can see it unknitting itself even as I crank. Should you decide to take this shortcut, it's just fine, but it is wise to knit slowly and be very watchful, because the ball winder didn't get into the act, so it didn't have a chance to find these flaws. If you see it in time to avoid dropping the knitting, it's just fine. Thread some more waste yarn and keep going. As for selecting yarn to use as waste yarn, inexpensive acrylic that is smooth in texture and strong is the best choice, and usually the best deal is on cones. Bargain yarns that are stained will work just fine. You really aren't going to care what it looks like. So sometimes you can find a very good deal from people who sell odd lots from estates and things like that. Just make sure the yarn is in physically strong condition. You won't be able to reuse any yarn indefinitely, but I've reused this one about 10 times. It's a slightly thinner yarn than what I actually use to knit the socks, but it knits through the machine very well, and it has a nylon content that makes it quite sturdy.